Hello and welcome to the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. I am Solomon of FM. Here are our top stories. Plateau government forced military over non-arrest of killers despite close contact. Shocking surge of electricity subsidy jumps 220% to nearly 2 trillion naira. 36 commissioners kick against the Senate proposed Electricity Act Amendment Bill. NEL Fund marks 1 year with 396,252 student beneficiaries. Tinubu renames University of Maiduguri after Buhari. FCT court says Yahya Bello's passport not in its custody. On our international scene, Israel leveling thousands of Gaza civilian buildings in controlled demolitions. And in sports, Nigeria and South Africa brace for potential WAFCON matchup. Those are our top stories. Details coming up shortly. The Plateau state government has faulted the failure of the soldiers of the Nigerian army to arrest the killers of 27 farmers in the Tahos community of the Riyom local government area of Plateau state. The state government blamed the military for the failure to arrest or neutralize any of the suspected killer herdsmen despite establishing contact with them during the attack. The checkpoint is barely 200 meters from where this incident happened, the State Information Commissioner Joyce Ramnap said on Friday. The commissioner said the community that was attacked by the vicious marauders was close to an access road which has military checkpoints. Ramnath said the fresh killings of the people of Plateau were unprovoked and despicable. She said that besides killing the people, the assailants go into the farms and destroy all their crops. The commissioner echoed the sentiment of Governor Caleb Mutfwang, who visited the community on Wednesday and described the perpetrated and the perpetual killings of the people by bloodthirsty marauders as a genocide. The federal government's electricity tariff subsidy jumps from 610 billion naira in 2023 to 1.9 trillion naira in 2024. This represents a 219.67% increase in yearly subsidy funding despite the Band A tariff hike of April 2024. The Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission (NERC) and analysts observed that the subsidy figures rose following the floating of the naira by President Muhammadu Buhari in June. President Bola Tinubu in June 2024, as well as the removal of few subsidies leading to high inflation rate. According to NERC, the federal government incurred a total electricity tariff subsidy of 1.94 trillion naira in 2024 to cover the shortfall between the cost reflective tariffs and the actual tariffs approved by customers. It was reported that the federal government paid only 371.34 million naira out of the 1.9 trillion naira subsidy obligation for 2024. This translates to 0.019% settlement. The 2024 report, it is important to note that due to the absence of cost-reflective tariffs across all disclosed as distribution companies in 2024, the government incurred a subsidy obligation of 1.94 billion naira, that's 62.59% of total NBET invoice during the year, which translates to an average of 161.85 billion naira per month. The subsidy obligations of the federal government is largely attributable to the federal government's policy to freeze allowed tariffs paid by customers despite the increase in cost-reflective tariffs. The cost was higher than the amount incurred as subsidies in 2023. In the 2024 annual report, NERC explained that the government undertook to fund the gap through tariff shortfall provisions, particularly after freezing customer tariffs at December 2022 levels. According to the report, the freeze persisted despite a sharp rise in cost-reflective tariffs driven by macroeconomic pressures, especially foreign exchange rate volatility. Meanwhile, the Forum of Commissioners of Power and Energy in Nigeria, FOCPN, has strongly kicked against the Senate-proposed Electricity Act Amendment Bill 2025. The forum spoke through a statement jointly signed by Eka Williams and Omale, chairman and secretary, and made available to newsmen in Makurdi. Williams, who is the Commissioner of Power and Renewable Energy, Cross River State, and his counterpart in Benue, Omale, expressed surprise and concern over the ongoing deliberations in the Nigerian Senate on the bill. The group expressed dismay that the Senate was deliberately trying to amend the landmark law enacted barely 2 years ago, and over 16 states have already adopted it. According to them, the Electricity Act 2023 stands as a signature achievement of President Bola Tinubu's administration. That said, the enactment followed the groundbreaking fifth alteration to the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which decisively removed all ambiguities regarding the ability of states to make laws and regulate electricity markets within their territories. They further regretted that the sudden move by the Senate would completely destroy their already effort and early efforts in the power sector and bring the country further backward. The Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NELFund, says it has disbursed over 73.2 billion naira in interest-free loans to 396,252 students across Nigeria's 36 states and the FCT. This marks a significant milestone in the fund's first year of operation. Speaking at a media engagement in Abuja, NELFund Managing Director Akintunde Soya reflected on the progress since the initiative was inaugurated by President Bola Tinubu. He said the total of 645,692 loans applications had been received, with 94% processed from 206 tertiary institutions nationwide. He described the program as a product of political will aimed at rescuing undergraduates at risk of dropping out due to financial constraints. The initiative, he added, was designed to democratize access to higher education and skill development through sustainable financing. Sawyer also highlighted the digital and transparent nature of the loan system, which enabled seamless processing, tracking, and verification. However, he acknowledged several challenges, including data mismatches, delays in verification, and misinformation. In spite of the issues, he reaffirmed NELFund's commitments to transparency and continuous improvement. President Bola Tinubu has renamed the University of Maiduguri, UNIBED, in Borno State after former President Muhammadu Buhari. Tinubu announced this during an expanded FEC meeting at the presidential villa in Abuja in honor of the former Nigerian leader. In honor of Buhari's memory, with this special session of the Federal Executive Council disbanded, can we adopt the naming of the University of Maiduguri with a new name, Muhammadu Buhari University, Maiduguri, the president said at the end of the FEC meeting amid applause from attendees, including ministers who served under Buhari and his son, Yusuf. At the event, President Tinubu, who led tributes for Buhari, described him as a man of integrity who lived a respectful life. The former Lagos State Governor said, quote, "Yet it was in the quiet and unadorned settings of his private life that his true greatness was revealed. Pious without show, just without cruelty, humane without sentimentality, temperate without coldness, and sincere without guile." End of quote. Buhari, a former Nigerian leader, died in London on July 13 after a prolonged illness and was buried on Tuesday in a ceremony attended by dignitaries within and outside the country. He was Nigeria's second largest serving leader. Buhari was a military head of state between 1983 and 1985. The Katsina-born was later elected as Nigeria's president, serving the country between 2015 and 2023. Justice Mariana Neni of the Federal Capital Territory High Court says the travel passport of the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yaya Bello, is not in the court custody but in the custody of the Federal High Court, Abuja. Justice Aneni made this known at the resumed hearing of the alleged money laundering case instituted by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC, against the former governor. She held that the court would have considered the application for the release of the defendant's travel documents if it were to be in its custody. The judge said even if the request to retrieve the travel passport were to be granted, it would be of no effect since the passport was not in the custody of the court but before Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court. The former governor is facing similar charges at both the FCT and the Federal High Court Abuja. He had requested the release of his passport to enable him to travel out of the country on health grounds. Justice Aneni adjourned the case to August 8 to October 8, 9 and November 13, 2025 for continuation of hearing. It is now time for us to join Kamyang John from our Abuja studio for more news.
These are the latest developments in the nation's capital. I am Kamyang John. The Federal Executive Council FEC on Thursday held an expanded meeting at the State House in Abuja in honor of former President Muhammadu Buhari. The session, presided over by President Bola Tinubu, was attended by council members, state governors, and family members of the late president. Among those present was Buhari's son, Yusuf, who expressed deep gratitude to President Tinubu for granting his father a dignified state funeral. President Buhari, aged 82, died on Sunday at a clinic in London and was laid to rest on Tuesday in his hometown, Daura, Katsina State. The Nigerian Army has charged warrant officers and senior non-commissioned officers to apply their leadership skills in securing the Federal Capital Territory and its environs. The charge was given by the Chief of Transformation and Innovation Army, Major General Olusegun Agbaye, during the closing ceremony of the Guards Brigade Warrant Officers and Senior Non-Commissioned Officers competition held Thursday in Abuja. Major General Abai, who was represented by the Director of the Transformation and Innovation Department at Army Headquarters, Major General Shinai Nicodemus, said the role of the Guards Brigade had expanded significantly beyond presidential security ceremonial duties to include the protection of the president, the first family, and the seat of power. Competition, he emphasized that the officers now bear the crucial responsibility of leading their men with professionalism, adaptability, and combat readiness in the face of growing security threats. Abai urged them to continually train and retrain their subordinates, noting that mastery in warfare requires constant innovation and resilience, especially given the unconventional nature of modern security challenges. The National Orientation Agency, NOA, has called on residents of the high-risk flood-prone communities in the Federal Capital Territory to take precautionary measures to reduce the impact of possible flood disasters. The Director General of NOA, Lanre Issa Onilu, made the call on Thursday at the Esut Palace in Paikon Kore Community, Gwagwalada Area Council. He identified flood-prone areas in the FCT to include Paikon, Gidam, Maikai, Kaidai, Pai, and Paishi. The sensitization campaign, tagged Flood Notification and Mitigation in Gwagwalada Area Council, was organized to raise awareness ahead of predicted heavy rainfall by the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, NIMET. Represented by the Director of Environment, Climate, and Energy, Emeka Obugara. The NOA boss said the event aligns with the agency's mandate of communicating government's policies and programs to the citizens. He described flooding as dangerous and indiscriminate, stressing the need for vigilance and early response. Residents were educated on warning signs, environmental responsibility, and the importance of community participation in managing flood risks. Issa Onilu recalled that NIMET, alongside the Nigerian Hydrological Service Agency and the National Space Research and Development Agency, had earlier predicted unusual rainfall patterns and flooding in 2025. Casual workers with the FCT Water Board have commended the Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, for approving the payment of 3 months out of the 6-month stipends owed them. The workers said they began receiving payment alleged just days after their concerns over unpaid stipends gained public attention. It was also revealed that there are two categories of casual workers under the board: those paid by the FCT administration and those paid directly by the FCT Water Board. Despite holding qualifications such as HND, many of them earn between 20,000 to 25,000 naira monthly. They praised the minister for being a responsive leader and urged him to ensure the payment of the remaining 3 months. Meanwhile, the casual workers are appealing to the FCT minister to approve their absorption into the civil service. Justice Marian Anini of the Federal Capital Territory High Court has confirmed that the travel passport of the immediate past governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, is not in the court's custody but with the Federal High Court in Abuja. Justice Anini made the clarification on Thursday during the resumed hearing of the money laundering case filed against the former governor by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. She stated that the court would have considered Bello's application for the release of his passport if it were in its custody. However, since the document is before Justice Emeka Nwite of the Federal High Court, the request could not be entertained. The former governor is facing similar charges at both the FCT and Federal High Courts. He had requested the release of his passport to enable him travel abroad for medical treatment. His counsel, Joseph Daudu, had also told the court that travel documents were not with the FCT court as previously ordered, but with the Federal High Court. Following the ruling, Justice Aneni adjourned the case to October 8, 9th, and November 13, 2025 for continuation of hearing. Those are the latest developments in the nation's capital. I am Nkamian John.
That was Nkamian John reporting from our studios in the nation's capital, Abuja. You are now listening to the World News. You are still listening to the World News at 12 right here on the Voice of the People 90.3 FM. We will take a short break. When we return, we'll head into the news analysis segment. If you're just tuning in, this is the World News at 12 on Voice of the People 90.3 FM. Joining us to help analyze the news package is Tunde Kolawole. He's a legal practitioner and a current affairs analyst. Barrister Kolawole, thank you for joining us on the news today.
Thanks for having me, and my greetings to all the good people listening to us.
So let's start with the first talking point of the news, where the Plateau State government has faulted the failure of the soldiers of the Nigerian army to arrest the killers of 27 farmers in Taos community of the Riyom local government area of Plateau State. Now, the state government blamed the military for the failure to arrest or neutralize any of the suspected killers, despite establishing contact with them during the attack. I mean, according to the Plateau State government, the checkpoint is barely 200 meters from where the incident happened. What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Well, the insinuation in that is that if there's a checkpoint just about 200 meters away from the scene of the crime, what the Plateau State government is indirectly saying is that the soldiers at the checkpoint should have had the gunshot when those people were being killed. And that being so, you could say that the anger or insinuation may be somehow justified. But the issue is very much complicated than that, in the sense that you and I do know that what is happening, where these insurgencies are taking place, is a kind of guerrilla warfare, a kind of a series of ambushes and skirmishes. It's not a conventional warfare. Guerrilla warfare is like hunting. The difference is that it is man that is hunting another man. So it's very, very complicated, very, very difficult to really nip in the bud while it is taking place. We must also remember these things don't take place at night. The people at the then have a night goggles or or vision equipment to be able to go in there and then confront the people who are carrying out this crime. Furthermore, do those people pass through the checkpoints where the soldiers or the policemen were stationed? Invariably, they will not do that. They will sneak into the community, and before they go at the checkpoint realizes it, much effort would have been done, and then they would have disappeared.
But the commissioner said the attack happened close to an access road, which has a military checkpoint. Access road, which means it would have been easy for them to come in from the military checkpoint after hearing the gunshots.
Yes, even if that is the case, I'm not trying to make excuses for the Nigerian army or for whoever may be at the attack checkpoint and all that. I took my precedent from history. Look at the U.S. They went to Vietnam to confront the guerrilla army, and they were roundly defeated. France also went to Vietnam, they were defeated. Russia, the former Soviet Union, went to Afghanistan, they were defeated. America went there and then they were defeated. That tells you the complicated nature of the kind of insurgency that we are facing. But be that as it may, you and I will also know that warfare, contemporary warfare, is different. Look at what we are seeing between States and Russia. Look at what we are seeing between Israel and then the Lebanon, Syria, and then the Palestinians war appeal, in which Israel has gone in there, used handsets, used pagers to kill so many combatants belonging to Ebola and some of these other systems. Look at what this did. They infiltrated Iran, and before Iran knew what was happening, they have eliminated most of their combatant soldiers or high-ranking officials. It's a very, very complicated matter. And then, but be that as it may, we should also remember that too many times people who have been kidnapped, people who have been a victim of this insurgency have come out to say that most times when they are being kidnapped, they will pass through checkpoints, and then the soldiers or the police who might be at that checkpoint will not even bother to stop the vehicle to inspect whoever may be in there, and then maybe possibly arrest the situation or nip it in the form before it generates and all that. All these things boils down to so many things. One, is the motivation to fight, is it there on the part of the Nigerian army or the police? Do they have the necessary equipment to be able to confront these insurgencies and war appeals? Because modern warfare has changed, and we are dealing with asymmetrical warfare. And do people make information available readily in those different communities and all that? Are the community leaders in those places, the districts, the emirs, the community partners and whatever, if I can use that word, do they do the necessary surveillance and reconnaissance that they also be doing to protect their community? The answer may be no. So if you now charge the security forces with confronting this insurgency alone, when the necessary tools are not provided for them, when the motivation in terms of salary, in terms of equipment are not there, you might be deceiving ourselves. I have recommended times, I have said it, when this insurgency first started out, if you don't leave this insurgency in the board, within 2 years, it will become very complicated and difficult to defeat, because what the insurgents would have mastered the terrain very well, such that defeating them or even tracking them becomes difficult. What they would have perfected their supply route, the supply of equipment and other that they used to fight, and other logistics that become very difficult to be able to unravel. Furthermore, the motivation on the part of the Nigerian army, who have been fighting for the past 15 years trying to defeat this insurgency, is very difficult. But also remember, insurgencies and then guerrilla warfare are fought in very, very difficult terrain, very inhospitable terrain. I remember one of the army generals who was sent, I was in Borno State and all that, complained about their equipment getting stuck in hills and muddy areas, so that most times these people come to pick them up and destroy some of this equipment with which they are supposed to be fighting. For me, if you are going to defeat this insurgency, a few things have to be done. Nigerian army or police and other have to be trained in modern warfare. Warfare has left what it used to be some 10 years ago. Second, we need to invest in equipment. I'm not talking about sophisticated equipment. Sophisticated equipment like jet bombers and fighter jets and other are obsolete. What is being used these days is drones and what have you, which saves human life and which are also cost effective and what have you. And of course, too, you will have to invest a lot in intelligence gathering. If you fail to do that and motivate the people, you might well be fighting a war you could never win. You may never win.
Now, the federal government's electricity tariff subsidy jumped from 610 billion naira in 2023 to 1.94 trillion naira in 2024. Now, this represents, according to information, the 219.67% increase in yearly subsidy funding, despite the Band A tariff hike of April 2024. Now, the federal government incurred the total electricity subsidy of that's covering the shortfall or the cost reflective tariffs of an actual tariff approved by customers. It was reported that the federal government only paid 371.34 million naira out of the 1.94 trillion naira subsidy obligation for 2025, which translates to 0.019% settlement. Now, what are your thoughts on this report?
Honestly, I don't know whether you did. I did economics in secondary school, just up to secondary school level, and what have you. And what we were taught in secondary school is that the bigger the market, the cheaper the product will become.
Yes.
If about 200 million Nigerian people require electricity, should electricity remain this very, very expensive the way it has remained? Should government ordinarily be subsidizing this electricity the way they have been subsidizing? My answer is no. But we continue to do this because we have refused to invest in modern technology. Today, most countries of the world are gravitating towards solar energy, towards nuclear energy. And those are energies that are more efficient and that are cheaper. So if we as a nation have invested in solar energy, or we continue to invest in solar energy, and then also begin to invest in nuclear energy and what have you, we could as well we might be able to bring down the cost of electricity, as government will not require to be doing the kind of subsidy that we are doing today. And also look at this multi problem. A lot of Nigerians are willing to pay for electricity and not that, but the cost, the service providers are not making life difficult for them. Look at, we say provide people with prepaid meter so that they will know how much they consume, and then they can also manage their own electricity consumption. But it's always very difficult for people to get a prepaid meter.
Even after paying up to 200,000 naira to get
even up to pay up to 200,000 naira to be able
you spend like 1 year before getting it.
Exactly. Egypt had the kind of problem that we have some years ago. You will not believe it that within 3 years they solved the problem by investing massively in solar energy and what have you. But we as a nation have refused to go in that direction for reasons that are inexplicable, for reasons that maybe the political will is not there. Up to today, a country of 200 million people, we see generating maybe an average of 5,000 megawatts or something per day. At least Mr. Femi Otedola has come out to say that since independence we begin to generate electricity. We haven't done up to 6,000 megawatts on a daily basis. That doesn't tell much about us. With the kind of massive investment the Obasanjo administration made in electricity, with the kind of investment Buhari made in electricity, with the kind of investment that the present government is also making in electricity, it would appear to me that the electricity generation and the ancillary industry around it is like the NNPC, a bottomless pit that will continue to pump money into until we are ready to do the necessary things.
Now, in the same vein, the Forum for Commissioners of Power and Energy in Nigeria, that's talking about commissioners in each of the states in Nigeria having a forum, have strongly kicked against the Senate proposed Electricity Act Amendment Bill of 2025. Of course, the group expressed dismay that the Senate was deliberating to amend the landmark law enacted barely 2 years ago, and over 16 states have already adopted it. Now, they said the enactments following the groundbreaking fifth alteration of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which decisively removed all ambiguities regarding the ability of states to make laws and regulate electricity markets within their territory. They are saying that this sudden move by the Senate would completely destroy their early effort in the power sector and bring the country further backward.
Well, I think when you look at the Constitution, I think electricity now you can say, and all the laws that have been made, has now put on the concurrent legislative list. That is to say both the states and the federal government and even local government that have the wherewithal can go ahead and begin to invest in electricity to service their respective communities and what have you. But the drive to really implement these laws and all that, you could say, may not be there. Just like you have found in the area of direct payment to the local government from the national revenue account. We have been toying with this for how many years now? We have gone to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has given an unambiguous and very emphatic judgment. Yet, we are finding it very difficult to really implement the decision of the Supreme Court. That might be one of the challenges that we are also facing in the area of this electricity regulation. The law you are talking about, I'm aware, I've said that the state can also set up their own electricity regulatory commission. And some of them, I think like the Lagos state government and some of the South state governments and all that, have set up their own commissions and all that, and have begun to really implement some of these things and all that. So when you begin to tinker with the law and all that, it says a lot about them. It means that maybe when they were making the last law, it was not well thought out at all. They didn't think it out properly before they proceeded to make the law. And why would the law be made without being properly thought out? The essence of having a public hearing and asking the state and the local government and some of the people that will be impacted by this law to come for public hearing is that you should have constitution, you should have input from the respective quarters that these things are going to be affected. So if you never did that, or if you did in a very tardy manner, you are likely to face the kind of problems that we are now facing. Now, less than 2 years, we are already tinkering with the law that was previously made. Furthermore, I am aware that some states are not too disposed to that legislation that unbundled, that began to unbundle this electricity laws as regards what is in the Constitution and other state laws of the land, because some might be thinking, or some of them are thinking, they might not have the resources to be able to do the thing that the law has asked them to now be doing. But the essence of a federating unit, of a federation, is that you should give power to the federating unit, to the state, and even to local government, to be able to discharge some of these responsibilities to their people. There is no state in Nigeria that is too poor to be able to meet the challenges of modern times, that will be finding it difficult to be able to provide the necessary wherewithal for their own people. All we need to do for the state to look at their strength and their weakness and invest in that area. Look at the north. Enormous opportunities for agriculture and agricultural raw materials and processing and supply of food and all that. Such that the whole country can, the whole of the north can say, look, we are going to emphasize agriculture with regard to our area. And whatever we make from agriculture, we plant electricity, we apply into road construction, we apply it into providing other social amenities for our people. Some states can even say, like a Ekiti state, and they'll say, look, education is going to be our own emphasis. We are going to be having very good schools in there, and then educational material production and all that, so that people will be coming to these states to educate their children and all that. Some countries in the world depend on the strength of education, the strength of the educational structures and what have you. We could also do that in here. So, for me, I think going to amend this law is like shifting the goalpost within 2 years of making the previous law.
Okay.
And the state and the House of Reps should please, when they are making laws, be more fastidious in the processes.
Now, the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, NEL Fund, says it has disbursed over 73.2 billion naira in interest-free loans to 396,252 students across Nigeria's 36 states and FCT. This marks a significant milestone in the fund's first year of operation. Now, NEFO Managing Director reflected on the progress since the initiative was inaugurated by President Muhammadu Buhari. This total of 692 loan applications had been received, with 94% processed from 206 tertiary institutions nationwide. What's your thoughts on 1 year of NEL Fund so far?
Well, let me quickly say this. I'm sorry to say this. I am not a supporter or a sympathizer or somebody who believes in this so-called education loan thing and what have you. And the reason is very, very simple. I have looked at some countries of the world where these education loans are being given. Look at America. The default rate is very, very high of the repayment of the loan. And people even commit suicide because by the time they have education loan to pay, they have housing loan to pay, they have car loans to pay when they graduate and are working and all that. They find out that they have little or nothing left to be able to live a comfortable life, and then they resort to committing suicide. That's one of the reasons I'm not a fan of so-called education loan. In fact, President Biden, who just left the U.S. now, at the time before he let out to write off some of these education loans in the U.S., if it is profitable, if it is making life comfortable for the people, why would America be writing off a student's loan? Why would people be committing suicide in those places? Again, look at the figure that I have quoted. It's a drop in the ocean. On a yearly basis, about 2 million Nigerian children apply to the universities, the polytechnic and colleges of education and all that. So if about 2 million apply, and you're just giving the loan to some thousands of people and all that, how does that solve the problem? It doesn't solve the problem at all. It's merely people, it's like scratching the problem on the surface. So we need to do more than we are doing. I would recommend, like I've always recommended, and sometimes these people are not happy about these things and whatever. Because when you are making commentary, when you are on this kind of commentary, you are doing what I call editorialization. That is to look at both the left side and then the left side, and then you keep in an opinion to make the decision better. That is what editorial is all about. What we should do, in my humble opinion, is that let's make education free from nursery, primary up to secondary school level. Anybody who aspires to go to the university should look for funds on their own to do the university education. And if they are not ready to do that, let them go and work and go to open universities or take courses in the part-time courses in the different university and polytechnics and all that. And we could liberalize these things. If it is 2-3 courses you can afford to take in a year, the university, the polytechnic and college of education to allow you to take it. If it's the open university that you think you can go, the open university should allow you to come in there so that people can educate themselves at a tertiary level at their own comfort and at their own rate. And once people have attained very sound secondary school education up to secondary school level and all that, the sky is the limit. That will open the door for whatever they think they want to do in life, because success in life is not about tertiary education. In fact, tertiary education, when it becomes too much, it makes you poorer and all that. People like Bill Gates, people like schools, the Facebook man and all that, when they go to university and find out, exactly, they go to university and find out that this university education is never likely going to give them what they want. They dropped out. And then they went ahead to pursue their passion, which is technology. I am aware that Elon Musk went to university. I think he completed there and all that. But all the things that Elon Musk has been doing since he graduated, really, I'm not too sure. It had more to do with education. It had to do with institution, invention, ability to think and read it between the lines and identify the gaps in the society, what the society really requires that is not presently available. And then they studied and then they began to invest in those things from the garages of their parents' home, from the garages of their friends' home, from the garages that they rented from colleagues.
That is easier said than done in a country where paper qualification is, it's practically ruling the society.
Well, we have to emphasize paper qualification. We have to tell how many people have paper qualifications that are multi-billionaires today. I am sure Alhaji Aliko Dangote didn't do where he did university, Otedola did university, and then Lumelu did university. Was it their certificates that gave them the stupendous way that they are sitting on? The answer is no. People like Aliko Dangote have a nose for investment. Otedola has a nose for investment. Lumelu has a nose for investment. And the man in Zenith Bank has a nose for investment. Go and trace their track record. The man who has Arise Television has been investing and been thinking about businesses right from the time he was in university and all that. So, honestly speaking, we have to emphasize the paper qualification and begin to encourage our children to think hard, to look at the gap in society, and then begin to exploit the opportunities in those areas.
Okay, sir. Barrister Kolalole, it's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me. Do have a lovely day.
Thanks, you too, sir. That was Tunde Kolawole, a legal practitioner and current affairs analyst. And now for a quick look at what's happening outside Nigeria. Israel has demolished thousands of buildings across Gaza since it withdrew from a ceasefire with Hamas in March, with entire thousand suburbs, once home to tens of thousands of people, leveled in the past few weeks. Satellite images show massive amount of destruction in several areas, which Israel's military command claims to have under operational control. Large swathes of it has been caused by planned demolitions, both through already damaged buildings and ones that appeared largely intact. Verified footage shows large explosions, unleashing plumes of dust and debris as Israeli forces carry out and controlled demolitions in town blocks, schools, and other infrastructure. An Israel Defense Force (IDF) spokesperson said it operates in accordance with international law, that the Hamas concealed military assets in civilian areas, and that the destruction of property is only performed when an imperative military necessity is demanded. The scale of destruction can clearly be seen in the city of Rafah near the border with Egypt. Still on the international scene, U.S. President Donald Trump says he orders the Justice Department to produce some additional documents related to sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Based on the ridiculous amount of publicity given to Jeffrey Epstein, I have asked Attorney General Pam Bondi to produce any and all pertinent grand jury testimony subject to court approval, Trump said in a social media post. It's unclear whether Trump is authorizing the public release of these documents or when that could come, though such action would typically require the approval of a court. The development comes after days of sustained pressure from some of Trump's most loyal supporters demanding further disclosures in the Epstein case. While campaigning last year, Trump promised to release files relating to the disgraced financier. However, Bondi last week announced that U.S. Justice Department did not believe Epstein had so-called client list that could implicate high-profile associates, and that he did take his own life despite conspiracies over his death. And now to sports. African superpowers Nigeria and South Africa will go into their Women's Africa Cup of Nations WAFCON quarterfinal matches with one eye on the semi-finals in Morocco. The Super Falcons and Bayana will meet in the semi-finals on 26 July should they overcome Zambia and Senegal respectively in the quarterfinals of the continental tournament. Nigeria booked their spot in knockout phase after winning Group B, and they will now meet Group A runners-up Zambia, who are undefeated in this tournament, at the Labi Zoli Stadium in Casablanca on Friday. Bayana, on the other hand, picked up 7 points out of a possible 9 to finish as Group C winners, and they now square off with one of the best two third-placed teams, Senegal, at the Honia Stadium in Abuja on Saturday. Prior to that, Morocco, who won Group A after collecting 7 points, will be in action on Friday at the Olympic Stadium in Rabat, where they are scheduled to square off with a Mali side that finished third in Group C. Morocco's neighbors and Group B runners-up, Algeria, will be hoping to maintain their unbeaten run in the tournament when they meet Group C runners-up Ghana at the Berkane Stadium in Berkane on Saturday. And that's the news, but before we go, here are the top stories. Again, Plateau government faults military over non-arrest of killers despite close contact. Shocking surge as electricity subsidy jumps 220% to nearly 2 trillion naira. 36 commissioners kick against the Senate proposed Electricity Act Amendment Bill. NEL Fund marks 1 year with 396,252 student beneficiaries. Tinubu renames University of Maiduguri after Buhari. FCT court says Yahaya Bello's passport's not in its custody. On a foreign scene, Israel leveling thousands of Gaza civilian buildings in controlled demolitions. And in sports, Nigeria and South Africa brace for potential WAFCON matchup. And that's the news at 12. I am Solomon Hoffem. Do follow our social media handles at VOP903FM. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at VOP903FM. Good afternoon and thank you for listening.